as easy as it is for us here at the Young Turks to laugh off John Boehner's lawsuit against the president, or sort of the brewing talk about impeaching the president because it comes up so often, the White House is not just laughing it off. They are in fact watching this, and they're going to do something about it. We've got a statement from one of the White House aides, Dan Pfeiffer, saying that I think a lot of people in this town laugh that off, including myself. I would not discount that possibility, talking about the impeachment talk. I think that Speaker Boehner, by going down this path of this lawsuit, has opened the door to Republicans possibly considering impeachment at some point in the future. Saying, I think it's a very serious thing. It's been bandied about by a recent Republican vice presidential nominee, not using Sarah Palin's actual name, but referring to her there. Also, some Republican candidates running right now, saying that it's unserious, and no one has even made any allegation of anything that would be within 6 universes from what is generally considered in that space. Basically saying that the things that they're using as reasons why the president should be impeached traditionally would never have been used for that. But that's the level of political dialogue that we have, or discourse that we have going on in the country right now.
All right, now let's call this what it is. It's a political trick by the White House. They're trying to goad the Republicans into impeachment, and they don't think that they're even going to succeed. They just want to paint it as if the Republicans are trying to pursue impeachment so they can turn around and say, what crazy radicals, right? Yeah. Now, they're right, yes, and there are Republicans who are out there agitating for it, U.S. congressmen, not just Sarah Palin, covered it on the show before. And yes, there are lunatics, etc. But be careful what you wish for. I just think that they're stirring up a hornet's nest here. And every time you talk about the president and impeachment, you help them because you put them in the same sentence. And people start to think that it's normal. And they start to think like, oh, okay, I don't know, should he get impeached? Everybody's talking about it. Even the White House is talking about it. They're trying to goad them, but it's just a dumb political tactic, if you ask me.
If you take it seriously, the American people are going to take it seriously. And they're not going to get into the history, certainly not most of the people that are paying attention. They're not going to get into the history of what people typically get impeached for, get threatened for impeachment. But it's funny because my perspective of the story was a little different. I understood it as Obama being a little worried about being impeached. So he's like, oh, I'm taking this seriously. I'm going to take steps to, alleviate the situation. And maybe the reason why I thought that is because he's been traditionally weak whenever it comes to dealing with Republicans. But maybe that's not the case. Maybe my perception was wrong.
No, I think that in Washington, the conventional wisdom is that impeachment is crazy. And so the White House is trying to get people to call the Republicans crazy. Yeah. So they're like, look, see, they're considering impeachment, call them nuts.
The vote for the midterm elections. Yeah. Because if they actually start the procedures before the election, then you can say, hey, if you don't get out there and vote some Democratic congressmen, and we could be in real trouble.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's more of that combined with trying to rile up liberals. In our production meeting, we were talking about the possibility that since so much of this talk about impeaching the president has been tied to a possible executive order involving the immigrant children at the border, we were worried that this was sort of him preemptively signaling that he's going to give in some way, right. Give the Republicans something. To avoid impeachment, he might even be willing to step down as president. That's how strong he is. But so we're scared about that, obviously. Hopefully that's not what it is. Now, in terms of what the public actually thinks about this, and understand that they've been hearing, like so many Republican politicians, at least bring up the possibility, and certainly members of the media on Fox News, Republican radio shows, they talk about it so casually at this point. But so far, just 33% of Americans in a recent CNN survey say that he should be impeached. 36% in a Fox News survey supported impeachment, which is about the same as for the last 2 presidents. And I think that it's unfortunate, if you study American history, that tools that we have traditionally, either in the Constitution or that have just developed, like the filibuster, like impeachment, like those are supposed to be used in dire times, but unfortunately now there's just an implied filibuster on basically everything that's debated in the Senate. And no matter what the president does or whatever the next president does, there's going to be talk of impeachment, regardless of the law, regardless of the executive order. That's every day in Washington now.
But it's decidedly one-sided.
Yeah, they're dire times, but they're dire times for the Republican Party because they're looking at the demographic and intellectual changes and political changes that have gone on in the country in the last 15 years, and they realize they can't hold on by free thought and free speech. You have to game it out. You have to change, where people can vote and what congressional districts are, and throw in all the blocking procedures in the Congress.
And that's why it's one-sided in that the Republicans filibuster everything a Democratic president and Democratic Senate does. And that's not what the Democrats used to do.
Keep their powder dry.
Yeah, they love keeping their powder dry. That's what we heard during the whole Bush years. You remember that? Of
There
course,
was a
all
lot of fucking dry powder in the Bush years.
That's
man.
right.
There was a lot of dry powder.
That's right. And but in the Washington media, everybody's forgotten how dry the Democrats' powder was during the Bush years. That was literally the term they used. We didn't say it. The Democrats would say it over and over again. We don't want to fight back yet. We don't want to filibuster yet. We want to keep our powder dry, right?
Yeah, Republican powder is moist
Torture,
as shit.
starting wars of aggression with no one attacking. We'll save it for later.
Meanwhile, Republicans, I mean, as soon as they saw on inauguration, they're like, get the powder wet! Go get them! Filibustered literally everything they saw coming out of the Senate.
Michelle Bachmann was wet on day one.
Oh, the least appealing thought in American history. Okay.
I feel uncomfortable now. Sorry about that.
So going back to Anna's point now on people misunderstanding what impeachment is. So again, Democrats scared to death of ever talking about impeachment during the Bush years when he brazenly broke the the law on warrantless wiretapping. Brazenly said he didn't do it, and then it turns out he did do it. Clear violation of the law, let alone 18 other things. They powder dry, ran for the hills, right? So now we already know Republicans already impeached Bill Clinton, right? So, and there's already a whole bunch of U.S. congressmen talking about impeaching Obama. I don't think it's going to get to that, but they're talking about it. But the reality is, a fifth of Americans think that impeachment is expressing dissatisfaction with the president.
Yeah.
It's not. It's a high crime, or it's sometimes treason. That's what it says in the Constitution for treason or high crimes and misdemeanors. A fifth of Americans believe that.
And that's the fifth that believes in the Constitution, right? That they should maybe read to find out we're not a fucking parliamentary system.
Yeah.
And there's no vote of confidence.
Yeah,
exactly.
And so they don't understand that impeachment means, if the eventually goes all the way through both houses, means throwing the president out. Okay, doesn't mean expressing dissatisfaction with him. And so I think that the Obama people here are too cute by half, and they think they're clever and they're stirring this up. But if I was them, I wouldn't stir things up with Republicans. You never know where things go. And the Washington media generally loves Republicans and think that they're almost always right.
Because they're better at marketing.
And they are. And then then you think Obama's going to effectively fight back?
They're also better at just it's the marketing bit, staying on message regardless of the facts.
Yes, absolutely. They're very unapologetic about being wrong. They just keep going on with their message. It's amazing.